What up, my little nerdlings? We are going to be drawing hands today. So you actually have a good sample at the end of your arm. Hands are going to be simple. It all depends on which way you're going. If you're going to do realistic or cartoony, you can always start with a circle and just draw some lines, and then you just go around those lines. Sort of straighten it up. You got an arm there, and you've got a hand. But it all depends on what type you're doing. If you're doing a more realistic, you know, do like a little you want right there, you want that extra finger. Why? Comics tend to, it depends on what type of comics you're doing. If it's more the humor comics, you notice a lot of your cartoons and comics only have 3 fingers and a thumb. But if you're doing something more superhero like, you got all 4 fingers. And when you're doing it more like that, you want to decide whether or not you want to go into detail of having the actual fingernails. If you do that, you want some knuckles. Just some lines right there. Make that, and not as many there. But if you're doing the more cartoony, you can just do a line across there and sort of insinuate knuckles. And you can have fingernails, or you can just ignore not having fingernails. And let's see. Also depends on how you do lines. I've just changed that same hand to where's the other one looking at you instead of looking away. But you want to do all sorts of I'm gonna tend to go more toward the cartoony for this. You got your main finger, your thumb, then you just do a couple of these, and you got, you know, you want to do your hand pointy. And in just about every, and you can do the cartoony hand with 5 fingers if you want to. I'm just going to use a pen so you can sort of see what I'm doing here a little easier. Sort of make the finger a little bulby at the end if you want to. Because when you're doing cartoony, doesn't have to be perfect. You can make it a little skinnier there. That gives it a little more feel to it. Shape. You can even come in with lines if you want to. So you can have your fingers either just straight, or you can have them a little bulby. And some people even square them off depending on their style. You know, because it is a comic. Let's do this. You'll make a fist. Remember, you normally would do this with your pencil and then come back and ink it. I'm just saving time by penciling in some remember, if you do more realistic, they're going to be longer and have like 2 of the creases in there. And while you're at it, you know, practice on your hands. Figure out whether you want the 3-fingered hands, you know, to mark cartoony, or the or if you want the four-finger more cartoony, or the four-fingered more realistic. Sometimes you just won't get it. So. And like if it's more cartoony, like where your knuckles are, add a little shading to it, and then come back and figure out where your hand lines are. If you need shading, you can add to it that way. And while you're at your hands, go one step further and start figuring out your feet. Like you have your leg, you have your ankle, then it just comes out like that, and you want some toes on there. And that's if you need to show a real foot, because a lot of times it'd be wearing a shoe of some sort like that, and it's just real. It just depends on what kind of shoe. If it's a boot and you shade it a little bit, from the side. Sometimes you add sort of where the ankle's is at. Remember, when the feet come down, one might be off to the point to the side, sort of, and the other one coming straight at you. But you also want to figure out what kind of shoes the person's going to be wearing when you get ready to do that. Let's see. If it's a tennis shoe, you can just do some simple lines like that, sort of make it look like a tennis shoe, and then you want to come in and put the sole of the shoe and you can even add a little more design to it. Just depends on what kind of shoe you want. You start with your basic shape. And remember, if it's a woman's shoe, depending on what you've got going on, you know, you might want something with a heel. So it all depends on who's wearing the shoe. So just do your pages and pages of practicing your feet and your hands, and just get, you know, just look at whatever, you know, you can use your hand as a actual model there. If you need something to go by. And then you just get used to drawing the hands. You know, you may not even get to where you do the circles as much. So basically you'll want to draw hands, 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 feet, 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 but also you'll need a ruler, because something we need to go ahead and talk about doing if you're going to be doing comics is lettering. And you're going to want to do some lettering. I'm going to fast forward through this, but basically what you want to do is measure off the 1/8 inch spaces all the way up and down. On both sides, and draw you don't have to make them dark lines because you're going to have to erase them later anyway. Let's stop there. Of course, y'all will want to go all the way down with this, but you'd want to print your alphabet. And over the years, I've just gotten used to it. Now here's something on my eyes. When I'm writing a word, like the word in, I do one line, but if it's the word I actually add the lines at either on top and bottom. And on my Z's, you don't have to, but sometimes, most of the time, I put that little extra line through it. You want to practice this so you can letter your own comics. Because basically, when you letter your comics, you'll be doing usually the 1/8 of an inch lines, and you'll sort of know how many to put. Like usually I don't go over 8, unless it's just something really different from what I usually do, and run them across. Then you got a sort of guide of keeping them straight, and you just skip an empty line and keep writing. But I took drafting for 2 years, and these are the letters I learned in drafting, and they are perfect for comic strips. And you practice with just writing anything, your name or whatever. Of course, with my name, I do the I a little different, but and you can just write any old thing to practice with. Now notice my W there. I've got a style that it's just for my natural style. I sort of curve my W's, where here I actually made them pointy. It's just the way it flows with my basically my handwriting. And as you do it, you'll sort of develop your own style, but you really don't know how much important that is to practice. Even if it's the same letter over and over. And then but basically just fill you up a page writing. And then after you get done with that, work on some stuff like you'll want to make fonts for doing different things. Like usually what I tend to do is just double and triple the line and make them a little bigger on stuff that you are sound effects. Something like that, you might add that to it, but That's the easiest sound effects thing. Or like if someone's yelling, or you just want to bring emphasis to something. That's the easiest sound effect thing, is just doing the same letters but doing them a little bigger. And be sure to, after you do it, go back over it and practice your inking by inking the very letters that you go ahead and do them in pencil, and then go back. And if it's not exactly on top of them, that's fine. Just close enough. But then, that'll help give you practice on your inking. And as time goes on, if you want to play around with, start out with the just bigger versions, but make you just sort of get an idea of where the letters are going to be at, and just go around the letters, make you a big word. And once you ink it, you can get rid of all the extra lines with the eraser. But you may do it just want to go with the just doing it right off the bat without anything. God dang it. Got my pencil. But that is something else you need to practice. You need to practice your feet, you need to practice your hands, and you need to practice just a few simple sound effect types as you're practicing your letters. And that's going to be lesson 3. Just go and practice doing your hands and feet. And just keep practicing and drawing. I will see you next week. If you're wondering what I was doing right here, I was doing the alphabet. But, you know, just do your hands and feet. You're going to have more fun with the hands because the feet pretty much stay the same. You just got different positions of them. Of how they you know. And just sort of pay attention how your feet are when they're in mid-motion. And be sure to draw that sort of thing. But I will see you next week.